Welcome to Trigger Warning with your host, Chris Brumbles. Are you tired of the professional liars of fake news and far-left radicals? Are you ready for truth and common sense? The insanity and divisiveness of political correctness and identity politics have no place here. So welcome to Trigger Warning, where free speech is free speech, not racism. There are no participation trophies, so if your mind is weak, grab your binky, head to your safe space. Consider this your trigger warning.
Good afternoon, Columbia County, and thank you for listening to Trigger Warning, where truth and common sense is revered and political correctness and leftist ideology is rejected as the insanity that it is. You know, I never could comprehend why there is a portion of this country who are too stupid and arrogant to learn from history. Patrick Henry said, I have but one lamp by which my feet are guided, and that is the lamp of experience. I know no way of judging the future but by the past. Ecclesiastes 1:9 in the King James Version reminds us that the things that hath been, it is that which will be. And that which is done is that which will be done again. And there is nothing new under the sun. I butchered that a little bit, but oh well, you get the message. Einstein put his own twist on the thing when he said that insanity is doing the same things over and expecting different results. It is time for a reckoning in November. I am neither a Democrat or a Republican, but I have watched as the Democrat majority policies are destroying our state with no way to return to the great state it was. They have now become so arrogant and tyrannical that they don't even try to hide it anymore. It's just in your face, I don't care what you think, despotism. And it definitely is time for a reckoning of the highest order. We need to quit practicing insanity at the polls, or should I say mailboxes. I wish it was polls. First thing we need to do is to get as many people as we can to actually vote, especially the NAVs who vote in very small numbers. I know that you don't think that your vote counts, but it absolutely does. Senator Kim Thatcher, who hopefully will become our next Secretary of State in November, talks of one of her races. I can't remember if it was a representative or the Senate race, but she was talking about how she won her election by less than a dozen votes. You see, it isn't the majority who decides elections, it's the majority of the minorities who vote. We need to do better about voting. It is not only your right, it is your duty as a free citizen, especially if you want to remain free. The governor is acting as if she is the monarchy, and the weak the weak supermajority in Salem is allowing her everything she wants. We are being betrayed, and to protect ourselves, we need to get out and vote. Quit electing people just because of party affiliation or because you think they are qualified because they have already held an office. Hold people accountable for their voting record, and let's get rid of the ones who do not have your best interest at heart. Let's take back the Senate that was stolen by Bloomberg. Let's turn the House, and let's make Crazy Kate a lame duck in order to protect our children who will bear the brunt of her sadistic job-killing, middle-class killing policies. So, sleepy, slow sexual predator Joe Biden has decided to pick Kamala Harris as VP. He picked this nasty, mean woman who liked to throw parents in jail for their children's truancy, even though they tried to get them back in school. She bragged about throwing pot users in jail as she laughed about pot smoking herself and got to the top by putting her feet behind her ears. Kamala Harris is not eligible for president and therefore cannot legally be VP because not only is she not a natural-born citizen, I don't even believe she's a citizen. If you go to Redoubt News and read the article that I just wrote entitled, Here We Go Again, I believe you will have the proof you need to know that what I say is true. Unless you are one of the people who no amount of proof will convince you. Then we have Slow Joe, who has to be in about stage 5 dementia, running against or is hiding from our great president, Donald J. Trump. Sleazy Joe has a past. He filibustered the 1964 Civil Rights Act, making racist remarks quite frequently. Of course, these are ignored by the duplistic left-wing lamestream media. There seems to be quite a bit of sexual misconduct in his career, and he is connected with quite a few scandals. Fast and Furious, using his political influence for nefarious reasons like getting his son an $80,000+ a month job for something he wasn't even qualified for while getting others fired. And let's not forget Benghazi, where American heroes were murdered and the administration he was part of lied about it being instigated by a movie. Morals and virtue are not only foreign to Handsy Joe, they are deplorable to him. On the other hand, we have an opportunity to re-elect Donald Trump, who before this scamdemic created the best economy ever, record jobs, record pay, stood for border security, backed our veterans, backed our police while standing for the rule of law, recorded the lowest unemployment in the country has ever seen for every ethnic group. While radicals are allowing burning and looting and calling it peaceful protests, President Trump has called for the arrest of these Marxists. President Trump has done more to preserve religious liberty than anyone since our founding. And the thing is, he's the only president in my lifetime who has actually kept promises he has made in spite of the ongoing coup from the left and the media since the minute he was elected. With Crazy Joe, you will get poverty, the Green New Deal, attempted gun confiscation to enslave you, a third world country, and mobs. With President Trump, you will get a recovery of prosperity, your rights protected, the best economy in the world, a country you can be proud of, and jobs. Now, closer to home, we can finally fire Brad Witt. Witless believes in the Marxist religion and fallacy of anthropogenic climate change. He voted 5 times to block the cap and trade bill from going to different committees that might have killed it. He will tell you that he didn't vote for cap and trade, but he will not tell you that his decision to abstain was tactical and that the only reason he didn't vote for it was that Crazy Catherine had enough votes. Nitwit claimed he was going against the middle class and job killing scheme. But after the session was over, he bragged about having a better cap and trade plan to redistribute your hard-earned money. Sad Brad has an F rating from the Oregon Firearms Federation. He voted for the anti-gun bill for HB 4145, and he even introduced an unsuccessful anti-gun bill that failed. Right before he sent out flyers, of course, of him holding a shotgun and dressed in hunting gear. He voted to steal your tax kicker, voted with Bonehead Brown to force transgender studies into our children's school curriculum, and against religious liberty by voting for the forced vaccinations. Brad the Cad became hostile and bigoted on the House floor when faced with opinions that differed from him about the forced vaccinations. Witless voted for HB 3427, the job kill and hidden sales tax, and has co-sponsored multiple bills that cater to illegal invaders, including 2 bills to give them driver's license, which is the people have twice said no to. He arrogantly voted for HB 870 to just disenfranchise your vote for president, and jumping on the national popular vote bandwagon that violates the Constitution and would make your vote useless. Brad is an oath breaker, a tactical voter who protects criminals and plunders your wealth any chance he gets. He sucks up to the unions and is a yes man for Crazy Kate Brown. Witless chooses party over principles, votes against your right, and represents himself, not you. Let's put Brad Witt out to pasture and send Brian Stout to Salem in his stead. Brian is a family man and a small business owner who is nowhere near as out of touch as Witless. Being a business owner, Brian has felt the same pain as many of us taxpayers have. Brian will protect your rights and your pocketbook, and that is partially why he is being endorsed by Oregon Firearms Federation and others. Let's end the invasion of the far-left radical Marxists in this county by making sure that the nut job Brandy the Dudzik does not stand a chance against Margaret Magruder for county commissioner in November. While we are getting rid of radical Marxists, let's remove Alex Tardif from his commissioner seat and replace him with Casey Garrett, who is a lifelong resident of Columbia County, cares very deeply about the county, and will look after your best interests instead of ideological goals. I'll be right back with our guests today, Brian Stout and Jeff Goodman. Thank you for listening. Hey folks, Chris here. Are you tired of political correctness and left-wing narratives? You must be, because you're listening to Trigger Warning, where we will have none of that. I'm your host, Chris Brumbles, and I have no filter when it comes to truth and common sense. I have a big mouth when it comes to protecting freedom and will never be afraid to use it. So tune in to AM 1600 Kohai every Tuesday at 3 for brand new shows. And if you have to miss one, don't fret. Trigger Warning rebroadcasts Monday through Friday at 3. Politics, constitutional issues, and history are just a few topics that we will conquer on Trigger Warning. So thank you for your support, and keep tuning in to Trigger Warning on AM 1600 KOHI. The Second Amendment is the palladium of liberty and protects the first law of nature, the right to defend yourself. Our rights have been under attack for many years now by would-be tyrants who want to control you. That's why I'm asking you to remember to vote yes on Measure 5-278, the Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance. Don't listen to the watermelons who are giving mis and disinformation on this county law that will protect your right to keep and bear arms. If you have questions about the say-so, call 503-263-5830 and leave a message with your contact name for Chris Brumbles, your chief petitioner for the say-so for the Columbia County. I will get in contact with you, answer your questions, and even get you a copy of the law if you'd like. So remember to vote yes on Measure 5-278, the say-so. And while you're thinking about it, go to OregonFirearms.org and sign up for the free alerts, where you will get the truth about the illegal laws coming out of Salem to turn you, the law-abiding citizen, into a felon or a victim of a criminal who aren't affected by these laws. Did you know that using the CDC's own stats, if you don't plan on using a firearm to commit a crime, commit suicide, and aren't a gangbanger, your chances of being shot by a firearm are 0.08%. That's right, you are far more likely to be struck by lightning. Gun laws are about control. It's time to be better informed about what's going on in Salem, so go to OregonFirearms.org, sign up for the free alerts, and if you feel like donating, it's not required, but it will be put to good use. As important as the Second Amendment is, the free speech protections of the First Amendment are just as important. I'm a proud contributor to Redoubt News. Please subscribe to Redoubt News, where citizen journalists who actually care about accuracy put in the time to do the research and fact check. Don't rely on the fake news of the lamestream media. Sign up to get Redoubt News. It costs nothing, and if we get enough people interested, Redoubt News Oregon will be coming soon. Remember, Redoubt News for real Americans like you. Once again, thank you for listening to Trigger Warning. Let's get back to it right now. Well, hello, Columbia County. Today we've got Brian Stout in the studio. He's going to be hopefully your next state representative. And we have Jeff Goodman, who was, he's calling in right now, it looks like. But let's start with you, Brian. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for office.
Thanks, Chris. I appreciate having me on today. I was interested when your ad said you're about truth and common sense, and it seems like currently in Salem we don't have any truth or common sense. We've got a media spinning stories everywhere. People don't know what's really going on, and obviously, as we can see by the policies coming out of Salem with our governor and our legislators there, Democrat-controlled supermajority, there is no common sense. Nothing makes sense anymore. And it's time to flip this script a little bit and get some common sense, normal people down there in Salem. And that's why I'm running for state representative here in House District 31. Our existing rep has been there for 16 plus years. And I believe and fully believe from listening to the community and being about that he has lost touch with what they really care about and is not involved in what's going on here and really does not have our best interests in heart. So that's the nutshell on why we are running. Somebody has to stop him.
Well, I had Rob Taylor on. You've met Rob Taylor a couple weeks ago, and he's a business owner, and he's been quite affected by this. Well, let me say this. There are no emergency clauses in the Constitution. I believe everything the governor is doing is illegal. Has this affected your business at all?
Everything has affected the business through this COVID virus, be it real, fake, or whichever sign you want to land on. We have a whole new environment out here, and it's been devastating to small businesses in the county. I'm a small business owner, and I support and service and work with lots of small businesses. So I've seen a direct financial impact and seen the impact upon the lives and the families. This fake emergency and extending this beyond what I believe is her power to be able to extend it on is now carried into our school year. And now our kids can't go back to school anymore. Speaking with parents and talking to parents, that is a huge problem for them right now, trying to figure out how to work how to get their kids in school, not getting their kids in school, having kids at home. There are no solutions. It's just more policies and control coming down with no answers. And people are really looking for answers. I've not seen that out of our current state rep. I've not seen any answers.
Yeah. Well, I believe that if they shut down schools, they ought to kick back the 76%. Isn't that what it is? Property taxes they use for schools? Give us back our money if you're not going to use it for that. But hey, I'm going to bring in Jeff Goodman now. Jeff Goodman's running for state treasurer, and you're on with us now, Jeff. Do you hear us?
I can, loud and clear.
Sir, so I just asked Brian Stout to tell us a little bit about himself and why he's running for his office. Could you tell us why you're running for treasurer?
Certainly.
Sure.
I'm a candidate for state treasurer for 3 reasons.
Okay.
Number 1 is competence. I bring 40 years of experience in the financial field as a controller, as a analyst, as a treasurer for many years in a variety of organizations. I think it's important to have somebody with the background that I have as our treasurer. Number 2 is integrity. I do not have any plans ever to use the treasurer's office as a stepping stone to a higher office. I would like to be Oregon's treasurer for 2 terms or 8 years, and then I finish up and come back home and serve locally, however that might be. And vision, where I want to serve all Oregonians, beholden to none, be working on behalf of every Oregonian, regardless of the group, and not being beholden, as I said, to any one particular group.
Right. So you're running against, is it Tobias Reed, who, if I've heard right, he's a little bit left of Kate Brown, who's a little bit left of Lennon. Is that correct?
I'm running against Tobias Reed primarily on the basis of the competence that he brings to the office. I can't speak to all of his positions, but I know on the Treasury positions he's not doing a very good job at all.
So what exactly does the treasurer do?
You bet. The treasurer has the responsibility not just to count the money, but to make the money count.
Okay.
And that's an important item to understand. The treasurer, and Mr. Reed has described himself as the financial navigator for the state of Oregon. Now, when I hear the word financial navigator, or if I hire a financial navigator to give me advice, or if you have someone that you get advice on financially, you expect them to give advice, to give them your reasons as to what you're doing or what you should be doing or not, and then you make a decision.
Right.
When you think of Mr. Reed, crickets, absolute silence. And if we think back over the last 4 years since he has been in office, there's been 4 huge issues, financial issues, impacting the state. One was the changes to PERS. Another one is the corporate activity tax. The third one is the cap and trade tax that is currently down in Salem. And the last one is the one with the impact of the COVID shutdown and the impact of the state budget. And I would expect our financial navigator to be giving us advice about what specifically should be done. Instead, all we receive from Mr. Reed are statements like, well, the markets will go back up, or we will get through this, which are nice platitudes, but they're not policy statements. And he needs to tell us, which he has not, what he thinks.
So back to the corporate activity tax. You're talking about HB 3427. That was the hidden sales tax?
Yes.
Yeah, which I do believe is going to break Oregon. Hasn't there already been a lot of businesses that have defaulted on paying that?
I don't know if they've defaulted on paying that, but certainly they're not paying anywhere near what the state thought was going to happen. And the reality is that corporate activity tax should actually be called a PERS funding tax.
Right.
And if I might go into a little bit on the numbers on
Sure.
that with you, if that's all right?
Yes.
Well, when the corporate activity tax, or the CAT tax, was put in place, it was anticipated it was supposed to bring in about $1 billion a year of additional money going in for education. Mm-hmm. Well, what was not said was that about half of that, or $500 million, was actually going to go indirectly to paying our PERS obligations, and the other half would actually go in the classroom. So split 50-50. Well, as what's happened with what has gone on with the COVID close down, the amount of money that they now anticipate coming in from the corporate activity tax has dropped from $1 billion to $700 million.
Mm-hmm.
The PERS money, the $500 million, still has to be paid, and that leaves about $200 million. And based upon what the Oregon Investment Council has done and recent investment activity, even with the recovery that's happened over the last several months from the low in March, I think that remaining money, that other $200 million, is also not going to be there. It's all going to end up going into paying for PERS, so not a single dime, likely, it's not certain, but I don't think a single dime of it's going to end up in the classroom.
Well, this is just what Kim Thatcher told us would happen.
Yes. And that prediction, we won't know until after the fact, but I think right now that prediction is looking very good.
Wow. So I'm going to switch back and forth, if you don't mind. I'm going to ask Brian. Brian, you got any goals that you want to accomplish when you get elected?
I think I've got that's a great question, Chris. Thank you. A lot of people ask, well, what are you going to go down there and do? And I think that's part of our problem is we go down there, or the people going down there are going down there to just do stuff. And it's not a matter of getting down there and writing new bills and new legislation necessarily. I think we're going to have to spend some time fixing the stuff that's been rammed down our throats for the last 4, 6, 8 years with the supermajority. It's going to be very difficult to unwind some of these things that they've done and to roll back some of these taxes and things that they've taken place.
Right.
It is appalling to me to see where we're sitting here in an economy that's struggling and people having issues and struggling and budgets going down, that your current state representative Brad Witt would sit there and vote for a cell phone tax. Now, this is a statewide issue. They're taxing cell phone bills across the entire state, the backs of everyone, for, quote, rural internet and communications. Well, they've already thrown tens of millions of dollars at that problem, but their answer is every time they're running low on money is let's just throw another tax out there on the back of people. How much more can we take? So do we need to go to Salem and write more bills and more legislation? No, we need to go to Salem and figure out how to balance our budget, which I appreciate Jeff's approach on this, figure out how to cut these taxes and get people back to work where they need to be, get their kids back in school, and just have a common sense approach to living life every day. And that's not what's happening. Our people there are out of touch with us.
Yes. Now, we just got a couple more minutes on this segment, but could you... So property taxes. Property taxes, they've been trying for 2 years to increase our property taxes by basically about 100%. What's your feeling on that?
I understand the need for property taxes and the need to have public services, but what they're doing is they're taxing us out of our homes, out of our livelihoods, out of our business. It's gone way, way, way too far. Meanwhile, radical movements are telling us that we need to give our homes away. If you've heard what's happened in Seattle, I don't know about you guys, I'm not planning on giving my home away, but the government is going to try to take everything from us with taxes. I don't know, Chris, about you, but 50+ % of our income gone in taxes, how do we even begin to survive? Another tax, another property tax, a homeowner's tax, anything like that is not good. And I think there are some things we can do to fix that. We can freeze some taxes for the people that are on fixed income, retired. There's other things we can do. But nobody wants to hear those bills. And there's been good people down there running those common sense approaches, but they get nowhere because they're overrun with the supermajority.
I got to tell you, I think that property taxes are theft. I honestly do. We ran this country for well over 100 years without property. Well, there may have been some property taxes, but we weren't taxed. We were probably being taxed 1,000, maybe 2,000% what our founders were, and they went to war over this stuff. But there's been over $10 billion in taxes raised in the last 3 years, according to the new articles I've read, and it's just getting sick. You know what? We're getting. Is it time to go? Okay, we'll be right back with Brian Stout and Jeff Goodman. Thanks for listening. See you in a minute. Hey folks, Chris here. Are you tired of political correctness and left-wing narratives? You must be, because you're listening to Trigger Warning, where we will have none of that. I'm your host, Chris Brumbles, and I have no filter when it comes to truth and common sense. I have a big mouth when it comes to protecting freedom and will never be afraid to use it. So tune in to AM 1600 Kohai every Tuesday at 3 for brand new shows. And if you have to miss one, don't fret. Trigger Warning rebroadcasts Monday through Friday at 3. Politics, constitutional issues, and history are just a few topics that we will conquer on Trigger Warning. So thank you for your support and keep tuning in to Trigger Warning on AM 1600 KOHI. The Second Amendment is the palladium of liberty and protects the first law of nature, the right to defend yourself. Our rights have been under attack for many years now by would-be tyrants who want to control you. That's why I'm asking you to remember to vote yes on Measure 5-278, the Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance. Don't listen to the watermelons who are giving mis and disinformation on this county law that will protect your right to keep and bear arms. If you have questions about the say-so, call 503-263-5830 and leave a message with your contact name for Chris Brumbles, your chief petitioner for the say-so for the Columbia County. I will get in contact with you, answer your questions, and even get you a copy of the law if you'd like. So remember to vote yes on Measure 5-278, the say-so. And while you're thinking about it, go to OregonFirearms.org and sign up for the free alerts, where you will get the truth about the illegal laws coming out of Salem to turn you, the law-abiding citizen, into a felon or a victim of a criminal who aren't affected by these laws. Did you know that using the CDC's own stats, if you don't plan on using a firearm to commit a crime, commit suicide, and aren't a gangbanger, your chances of being shot by a firearm are 0.08%. That's right, you are far more likely to be struck by lightning. Gun laws are about control. It's time to be better informed about what's going on in Salem, so go to OregonFirearms.org, sign up for the free alerts, and if you feel like donating, it's not required, but it will be put to good use. As important as the Second Amendment is, the free speech protections of the First Amendment are just as important. I'm a proud contributor to Redoubt News. Please subscribe to Redoubt News, where citizen journalists who actually care about accuracy put in the time to do the research and fact check. Don't rely on the fake news of the lamestream media. Sign up to get Redoubt News. It costs nothing, and if we get enough people interested, Redoubt News Oregon will be coming soon. Remember, Redoubt News for real Americans like you. Once again, thank you for listening to Trigger Warning. Let's get back to it right now. Welcome back to Trigger Warning, where we have Brian Stout and Jeff Goodman, who's running for treasurer, on the phone. So here in a little bit, we'll be asking y'all to call in if you have any questions. The number would be 503-397-1600. So call away if you got questions. I'm going to ask Brian, is there any laws that you think you would want to try and repeal? Because I like President Trump's thing where he if they want a regulation, they got to get rid of 7.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
One of our biggest problems right now in Salem is revolving around this emergency clause. It's part of why Oregon's so far behind in this nation with this COVID pandemic, if you want to call it that, is we've got this emergency clause enacted giving broad powers to our governor to do anything she wants. Well, it doesn't just apply to this, it applies to everything. Mm-hmm. When there's any law that's written, they can literally put an emergency clause in there which does not allow it ever to go to the voters, to the initiative petition process, or to ever be changed, which means that unless the people running the show down there change, we're never getting rid of these laws. Right. I believe that there is now a new initiative petition just starting to circulate to put it on the ballot in 2022, I believe, to eliminate the fake emergency clause law we have in the state of Oregon. So that's something I'll definitely champion behind.
That one I help with that. Well, that is the emergency clause for the laws, yes.
Right.
But for a couple friends of mine and I are actually working on another one to get rid of the emergency powers.
That's a different
That's
deal.
probably going to take us a couple years because, it takes us a year to get a ballot title, but it's being written right now. The Constitution didn't have emergency clauses in it. Our founders knew that everything would become an emergency. Just like they're using the emergency clause in Salem to, basically disenfranchise the voters so they can't get rid of these lousy laws. I was going to say something I shouldn't, that they keep writing. But let me go back to Jeff now. Mr. Goodman, sir, So
Yes, sir.
We were talking about the employment division doing a computer infrastructure upgrade. Can you talk a little bit about that?
You bet. And
Yes, sir.
that one, there is enormous pain going on for Oregonians. The number's getting a little bit better, but the last time I checked, it was over 243,000 unemployed Oregonians who are wondering what's going to happen to their homes and families because the employment division computer infrastructure, computer software upgrade wasn't done, despite the fact of having tens of millions of dollars from the federal government many years ago. And Mr. Reed is quoted in the Oregonian, and it goes as follows. Quote, Reed said one of his takeaways is that Oregon needs to prioritize important infrastructure replacement projects, even when the system's problems aren't getting public attention. Close quote. My response to that is, after nearly 14 years as an elected official, he's now just realizing that infrastructure is important. And it gets worse because back when he was serving in the legislature, there was an audit on the employment division on that upgrading the systems. It was in 2015, and the legislative committee that was supposed to be looking out for the state systems and infrastructure needs in 2015 was the Capital Construction Subcommittee, and they failed to act. Guess who was the chair of the Capital Construction Subcommittee at that time? And I can give you a hint. His first name begins with Tobia, and it ends with S.
I think that's a pretty good hint.
Yes.
Well, this question I want to ask both of y'all. So we'll let you go first since you were talking last, Jeff. Would either one of you support criminal penalties for politicians who violate their oath of office? This is near and dear to my heart.
I mean,
so you have to take an oath of office and swear allegiance to the Constitution when you're elected, and there's too many politicians that go in there and they raise their right hand, and then when they put it down, they grab a pen and sign a bill that violates your rights. Would you support criminal?
It's on, and the oath that I took when I was elected and served on city council was to defend the Constitution,
right.
The Oregon State Constitution, and the laws and ordinances passed by the city of Lake Oswego, where I live.
Right.
And my answer is, when you're talking about the Constitution of our country, you want to be very careful, so I want to look at each of those on a case-by-case basis.
Well, now, the Constitution of the United States is the supreme law of the land. No laws can violate that, not by the feds or the state. So that should be the number one concern, in my opinion. And, of course, you can't violate the other constitutions either. So it's a pretty simple question. Would you?
Yes. No. I mean, but I want to, again, I'd like to be careful on these things and get the facts straight. But if there is it and the facts demonstrate it, of course.
Yeah. So what do you think, Brian?
I absolutely think that they have lost sight of that oath of office they take. And it's easy to do in the environment and how our national political scene, our state political scene is strayed so far from what we truly should be doing. And they're kind of lost in the forest, if you will. Your actual question was civil penalties regarding that. I said recently to somebody that
I like to take them to a tree, honestly.
Well, there has to be consequences for bad actors and bad actions. And if that's something that might work, I definitely would want to take a look at that.
Well, that's back when we had rule of law, like
Not
guaranteed.
Yeah. So to answer your question, it's something that should be looked at.
Well, I think it's something that should be enforced, but.
And I can jump in just with a quick statement. Sure. Just late last week, I got an endorsement from ORCOPS, which is the Oregon Association of Police and County Officers. So I was very pleased to get that endorsement.
Good. Well, we are guaranteed under Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. We're guaranteed in the Oregon Constitution, too. I'm not sure which article, but I'm not as familiar with the Oregon Constitution as the U.S. Constitution. But we are guaranteed the rule of law under a Republican form of government. Now, we've had basically a suspension of the Constitution for over 6 months. At what point do we still consider ourselves a free nation? I mean, when do we stop considering ourselves free? Go ahead and what do you think about that one, Brian?
It's a great comment, a great observation, a great question. Kind of brings us back to the whole emergency clause thing and being able to declare anything emergency and enacting basically medical powers to shut everything down indefinitely. At what point do the people say enough's enough? Well, let's hope that's in November at the ballot, because that's really the only lever we have right now to change any of this. If people have got to come out and they've got to vote and they've got to realize, I'm tired of seeing my cities burned down, my house is torn up, my business is shut down, people pulled out of vehicles and beaten to death while our government and our officials stand by. We have to have strong, safe communities. I'm a big supporter of law enforcement. And supported by past police and sheriffs and law enforcement officers in my campaign as well. We've got to have safe communities, and this is a paramount issue. And if we've strayed so far from where we're at and we've lost sight of that, then we really are going to have, I hate to use the word, but anarchy in the streets. We already have anarchy in the streets. So at what point do the voters and the people say enough's enough? Do we go to war? Well, yeah, we need to go to war now. We need to go to war, and we need to get some good candidates across the state elected and get rid of these people allowing these things to happen, because it's endangering all our lives.
So go ahead, Jeff.
I can share some good news about my election in this fall, because I agree we need to have change in office, particularly at the treasurer's position. You may recall that in 2016, I came within 42,000 votes, 2.4 percentage points of winning the treasurer's office, and I was outspent 5-1.
Yeah.
And there was an independent party candidate, a person by the name of Chris Telfer. She's a very capable accountant from Bend. She got 175,000 votes. Mm-hmm. I lost by 42,000.
Wow. The
very good news is, for 2020, Chris Telfer is 100% supporting me.
Wow. You know, I think you won this county in 2016, if I recall.
I think I did, yes.
You did.
So
hopefully you'll win it again.
Win that county, and in the perfect world, I win all 36 counties of the state.
Well, so this is kind of off track. And by the way, people, we're talking with Brian Stout, who's running for your state representative to replace Brad Whitless, and we're talking to Jeff Goodman, who's running for state treasurer. If you want to call in, it's 503-397-1600. Call in with your questions. So I want to talk just a minute about mail-in ballots. I read this report that, most countries have made it illegal for mail-in ballots. And I'm talking European Union. France is going to allow it this year only, but most countries have done away with it totally, and except for special circumstances, and those circumstances usually excuse me, they usually require you to come in and show your ID, get a ballot, and then mail it in. What do y'all think about that? I think the Democrats are obviously trying to force mail-in ballots across the country so they can steal an election. What's your opinions on that? How about you, Brian?
I've got a real radical idea.
Mm-hmm.
I think Election Day should be a national holiday. Everybody should take off, and they should actually be able to go to their polling place, and they should be able to hand their ballot to somebody and know that the ballot's there and getting counted at their local elections office. The thought that mail-in ballots are safe and secure has been debunked over and over, and there's lots of proof across this country and even here in this state that it is not secure, that there's ballot harvesting, and the verification process is not good. Beyond that, they get hung up for weeks, in some cases months, as in elections, going through, looking at ballots, trying to throw ballots out. So we don't have almost an instant real way to know who's winning, who's not winning. And it gets really ugly, and then the lawyers get involved. Remember the hanging chads? Well, we kind of have the same issue with some of our mail-in balloting and not being able to, to see that person physically handed it to them, check their ID, that's a valid ballot. So we're in the weeds on the back end with this, and it's just an absolute mess.
Yes. You got any opinion on mail-in ballots, Jeff?
My judgment on it is a little bit different. Okay. For Oregon, we've had mail-in ballots now for about 20 years. Mm-hmm. And gosh, I sure miss going to the ballot booth and signing in and marking my name and then voting. I do like that idea that's been just been brought up about a national holiday for people to vote. I think that would be great, because going into the voting polling stations, and is an act of, of civic engagement, which I think is so very important for our country, and it builds community within not the city, the county, the state, otherwise. But with respect to the mail-in ballots, we've had 20 years to get the system not perfect, but I think it's a pretty good system, and we can always make it better. But I'm generally satisfied with the mail-in ballot system that we have in Oregon. What we have elsewhere in the country, I'm not qualified to speak to.
Yeah. Well, folks, we're talking with Brian Stout, and we're talking with Jeff Goodman, who's running for state representative and treasurer, respectively. We'll be right back on Trigger Warning. Hey folks, Chris here. Are you tired of political correctness and left-wing narratives? You must be, because you're listening to Trigger Warning, where we will have none of that. I'm your host, Chris Brumbles, and I have no filter when it comes to truth and common sense. I have a big mouth when it comes to protecting freedom and will never be afraid to use it. So tune into AM 1600 Kohai every Tuesday at 3 for brand new shows. And if you have to miss one, don't fret. Trigger Warning rebroadcasts Monday through Friday at 3. Politics, constitutional issues, and history are just a few topics that we will conquer on Trigger Warning. So thank you for your support, and keep tuning in to Trigger Warning on AM 1600 KOHI. The Second Amendment is the palladium of liberty and protects the first law of nature, the right to defend yourself. Our rights have been under attack for many years now by would-be tyrants who want to control you. That's why I'm asking you to remember to vote yes on Measure 5-278, the Second Amendment Sanctuary Ordinance. Don't listen to the watermelons who are giving mis and disinformation on this county law that will protect your right to keep and bear arms. If you have questions about the say-so, call 503-263-5830 and leave a message with your contact name for Chris Brumbles, your chief petitioner for the say-so for the Columbia County. I will get in contact with you, answer your questions, and even get you a copy of the law if you'd like. So remember to vote yes on Measure 5-278, the say-so. And while you're thinking about it, go to OregonFirearms.org and sign up for the free alerts, where you will get the truth about the illegal laws coming out of Salem to turn you, the law-abiding citizen, into a felon or a victim of a criminal who aren't affected by these laws. Did you know that using the CDC's own stats, if you don't plan on using a firearm to commit a crime, commit suicide, and aren't a gangbanger, your chances of being shot by a firearm are 0.08%. That's right, you are far more likely to be struck by lightning. Gun laws are about control. It's time to be better informed about what's going on in Salem, so go to OregonFirearms.org, sign up for the free alerts, and if you feel like donating, it's not required, but it will be put to good use. As important as the Second Amendment is, the free speech protections of the First Amendment are just as important. I'm a proud contributor to Redoubt News. Please subscribe to Redoubt News, where citizen journalists who actually care about accuracy put in the time to do the research and fact check. Don't rely on the fake news of the lamestream media. Sign up to get Redoubt News. It costs nothing, and if we get enough people interested, Redoubt News Oregon will be coming soon. Remember, Redoubt News for real Americans like you. Once again, thank you for listening to Trigger Warning. Let's get back to it right now. Welcome to Trigger Warning. We're with Brian Stout, who's running for our state representative in House District 31, and Jeff Goodman, who's running for our state treasurer. Welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, I'm going to ask you probably some questions that, I'm with Oregon Firearms Federation, so I gotta ask y'all. Right now in Washington, they're working on, I forget the name of the bill, it's HB 77 something, like 7719 or something like that, I can't recall. But it's a national castle doctrine bill. And what that bill will do, if it goes anywhere, I don't think the House is going to let it, but you would be able to defend yourself, your property, yourself, any of your property, yourself, your neighbors, anything without fear of going to court. So what's your opinion on that?
I'll start first. That's a tough question, Jeff.
It's not that tough. If somebody is breaking in my house or my pickup, I would have no problem shooting them.
I think there's a lot of people that feel that same way.
Yeah.
Responsible gun ownership, and understanding what that means is paramount, and I think there's a lot more to that question than you can just quickly scrub off here. I'm proud to say that I am endorsed by Oregon Firearms Federation as their candidate here in this district, and supporting gun rights, supporting your right to defend and protect yourself. I think with what we see is what's going across the state and in downtown Portland and other areas, and groups coming into our communities creating problems with us, that everybody wants to be able to defend and take care of themselves. So on its face, yeah, being able to defend yourself and your property from violence against you, yeah, I mean, I think we have that, but those laws are being eroded away. And I appreciate OFS endorsement, the fact that they're the only no-compromise group that says, we're not going to let you go after any of our 2A rights. They're your rights. They're your God-given rights to protect and defend yourself.
Well, I got to tell you, man, with this stuff, I think this was the reason. This bill is in response of all these business owners across the country that are getting their businesses broken into, burned, looted. If you have everything you've ever had tied up into that store, and I had a guy call me the other day. I'm not going to mention his name. He's a pretty popular guy, actually. And he said, "Hey, Chris, I mean, if somebody comes in your house, you can shoot them, but what about your business?" I said, "I don't think you'd get away with it. But if somebody comes in and starts hauling away $100,000 worth of your merchandise, don't you think you have a right to defend yourself and your property? I mean, they could ruin your whole life." I mean, what's your opinion on that, Jeff? Didn't mean to ask you a hard question, but I got to ask it.
No, you do a marvelous job as the host in asking the questions.
Thanks,
and I'll be happy to answer.
Yeah.
And I'll give an example of when I served on the city council. One of the decisions that we made collectively, and it's one I strongly agreed with, is that the city council was not going to debate and discuss issues that didn't relate to the city council and the running of the city. Because I get tired of elected officials who talk about subjects over which they have absolutely no control.
Right.
And as an example of that, my opponent, Tobias Reed, is hosting a panel discussion on safe elections in Oregon. Well, the Treasurer's Office has absolutely nothing to do with the elections in Oregon.
Right.
And that's called, I call it Mr. Reed doing his state magician act. So, as I call it, either he doesn't quite understand his job description, or he's trying to pivot away from it because he can't defend what he has or has not done. So I'm running for the treasurer. I want to stay focused on the issues that directly involve the treasurer's office. This is not one of them, and so I want to keep to the principles I've had for my silent service on city council and also going forward on serving as state treasurer, to focusing on the finances of the state.
Okay. Well, we got about 3 minutes and 16 seconds, and then I have to wrap it up. So I'd like to give you each about a minute and a half to put in your final comments, if you could.
All right.
Also put out where you can be contacted at and where you're receiving donations, all that stuff.
I'll defer to my colleague who's running for the state legislature.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
Hey, I just want to say thank you to the community. I've met so many people over this last year who have said enough is enough. It is time to slow down and get off this train of overspending and overtaxing. We need to bolster our economy, not stifle it. We need to support our first responders and make public safety a priority, which we've been talking about. Let's restore some sanity here at home, in Salem and throughout our magnificent state, because we really do have a great state. As your next state representative, my priorities will be protecting our way of life, defending our freedoms, and bringing some common sense, community-centered values to the state legislature. I can be reached at stoutforstaterep.com on the web. We also have a Facebook page, Stout for State Rep. I encourage you to go out there, take a look, read more about us, who we are, what our campaign's about, and which really means who I'm about and what I'm trying to do. And that really is really make a change here in the community and represent the people in this community and continue with the works we're doing in this community. But let's just take it to the state level and make sure that we're not getting overrun here. So I feel my job going back to Salem is going to really make sure that we protect what's going on here in our community and our way of life. So that's it. Thank you for your time.
Your contact, Jeff?
You bet. My name is Jeff Goodman. I am the candidate for State Treasurer of Oregon. You can reach me online at www.jeffgudman.org. That's www.jeffgudman.org. I'm a candidate for State Treasurer for 3 reasons: competence, integrity, and vision. As I mentioned earlier, watching a magician use misdirection in a stage show can be fun, but being state treasurer should not be an act. Oregon needs real financial leadership that is engaged and focused on the issues that matter. What we've got now is just smoke and mirrors. It's time for a change. It's time for a new treasurer. It's time for Jeff Goodman to be Oregon's next state treasurer.
Yes. So y'all, make sure you get a hold of these guys. So I want to thank Brian Stout and Jeff Goodman for being on the show today. Before I wrap it up, I'd like to bring to the attention of Columbia County that there is a far-left radical useless idiot commie named Thomas O'Hanlon. We will refer to him as Thomas the Hooligan from now on. Anyway, he is starting to feel pretty good about himself. This idiot is a keyboard kamikaze who likes to get a few of his trolls together in an attempt to shut down free speech around the county through bullying tactics. That is when he is not lying to the newspaper. He fancies himself one of these cowardly Antifa and Black Lives Matter morons who are nothing more than participation trophy generation wastes of flesh who feel entitled to everything but accountable to nothing. These snowballs are terrorists, plain and simple. I call them snowballs because snowflakes are individual and that term does not quite suit them. This particular idiot recently started harassing women gathering signatures to recall Kate Brown, and even put one of their addresses on the internet. Well, guess what, hooligan? You are not special like you think you are. You are about as sharp as a bag of marbles, and if you keep on your bullying tactics, we will release your address and let the chips fall where they may. Columbia County will not have cowards running amok and bullying women. No one is picking up what you are laying down. Even the progressive communists have rejected you. So continue your idiocy if you want, but prepare for rain if you do. I hope today's show was informative. If you have any questions for Brian or Jeff that were not answered today, don't hesitate to get a hold of them and question them up. It's never been more important to be informed about your candidates, and there has never been a more important election. Make sure you vote in November and urge everyone you know to vote. We need to be vigilant from here on out. Vigilance is defined as the act of keeping careful watch for possible dangers or difficulties. And our founders, who knew history very well, warned us to always be vigilant of government. Because of human nature and because there are no angels among men, and especially in government, there will always be those who want to rule you, and that means you must be controlled. Liberty is popular, though, and it is for times like these that our founders articulated the Bill of Rights, and especially the Second Amendment, to make sure we keep our rights. Remember, liberty is the inherent possession of man and not the gift of government. We do not elect kings. It's time we taught our elected employees that. Our duty is to pass liberty to our posterity, so let's act like it. Let your voice be heard, and for sure, make sure you vote. Let's serve up a reckoning this November to the tyrannical supermajority in Salem. Thank you for listening to Trigger Warning. God bless, and let's keep Columbia County normal and sane.
You've been listening to Trigger Warning with Chris Brumbles. You can email your comments to kohi.radio@gmail.com. And listen again next time for Trigger Warning with Chris Brumbles.